My research focuses on the history of Hungarian avant-garde theater between the two world wars, and I chose this topic in the relation to this. I will present the theater exposition held in New York in 1926 and the Hungarian artists who exhibited their work there. This part of my research is in a beginning phase, so would be glad if somebody give a comment and I can build up in my research. The theater exposition was an important event since the curator Friedrich Kiesler, the Austrian-born stage designer and architect, included all of the progressive tendencies and ideas on the field of theater techniques and stage design that appeared in the 1910s and 20s. Kiesler was doing the curating works on the commission of Jane Heap, an American publisher who made a significant contribution to the development and promotion of literary modernism in the United States. She was the founder and co-editor of the magazine Literary Review. This will be important later, I will speak about it. This exposition is not only interesting because of the curator, who was an extremely exciting figure of stage design and architecture himself, and because the exhibited works presented the newest ideas to the American audience in a wide range, but also because of the presence of the Hungarian Emigré artist was significant. The visitors could see the plans of Marcel Breuer, Vilmos Huszár, László Moholi Nagy, László or Ladislas Medgyes, and Farkas Molnár amongst the figures of the international avant-garde, such as Enrico Prampolini, Elie Zitsky, or Oskar Schlemmer. If we look upon these names and their life, as I will present them in the following minutes, we can see two models of dealing with the situation of being an immigrant artist. One is that they joined to the work of a school, artistic group, or studio, and their works were born in the framework of these places before they became independent artists on their own right. This is what we'll see in the case of Marcel Breuer, Farkas Molnár, or László Moholi Nagy, who joined in the Bauhaus School, and Vilmos Huszár, who worked with Theo von Doesburg and the Destey Group. Although I have to say the case of Moholi Nagy is a bit more complex, since he joined in Bauhaus as a matured artist and teacher with several artistic works, including theatrical designs too. The other position was that they emigrated from Hungary and started an independent career from the beginning with making contacts with persons of the local art scene, incorporating to it and building up an artistic practice, as we can see in the oeuvre of Ladislas Medgyes. Before I would go in details about the New York show, I found it important to present the International Exhibition of Modern Decorative and Industrial Arts that was being held in Paris in 1925 in a few sentences. Firstly, because that was the event where Kiesler and Heap met, making possible to arrange the exposition in the next year. Secondly, because the realization and conception of the Paris Expo can be considered as a direct antecedent of the exhibition in New York. The International Exhibition of Modern Decorative and Industrial Arts, known as the Paris World Fair, was being held between the 28th of April and 25th of October 1925. This exhibition is known as the birth of Art Deco, since the buildings, the pavilions, and the pieces of decorative arts reflected the rise of this new artistic style. Additionally, there are other significant elements of this event which were very important in the perspective of the history of avant-garde art. This was the first international event where the Soviet-Russian constructivist art demonstrated themselves in a wide range in the pavilion of the Soviet Union. In the same time, the French Purist movement came in the spotlight with the pavilion of L'Esprit Nouveau, designed by Le Corbusier. Nevertheless, the most important element was, in our perspective, that this event was the first time when the stage design has been introduced as an independent artistic form and claimed special attention by the organizers. There was a separate committee responsible for the theater programs, invited the exhibitors, and they asked the exhibiting countries, especially, to show the newest stage and theater designs tendencies in their countries. Adapted to this concept, the Paris World Fair contained a section of theater, and the national pavilions presented theater designs among other works. The pieces were categorized in the exhibition catalog in two different groups, one as theater arts and the other as the art of the street. Furthermore, they raised a separate theater building where the countries could demonstrate these practices and ideas to the audience in the form of performances. Unfortunately, I forgot to put a picture about it, but it was very impressive. This building was designed by Auguste and Gustave Perret and André Granier, who took into account the needs of modern theater and the exhibiting artist works. We have to mention here, because it will be important, that although Hungary was not participated on the Paris Expo with a pavilion, but there were Hungarian artists who exhibited their works there. Just to mention theater artists, the audience could see the works of László Mégyes, who lived and worked in Paris since the beginning of this decade. His pieces were displayed in the French pavilion amongst the theatrical works of the foreign artists living in France. I will speak about him later. I just mention here because I found it important relating to the situation of an emigrant artist, and it is also typical concerning to this artist's career. After all, let's see the New York show. We can turn our attention to Kiesler and the New York exhibition. As I already mentioned, Kiesler and Jane Heap met at the Paris World Fair. Josef Hoffmann, the Austrian architect and designer, invited Friedrich Kiesler to be the curator of the Austrian theater section in Paris. He did not only present the Austrian avant-garde artist, but introduced his new installation structure called Raumstadt, City in Space. Miss Heap, editor of the American literary magazine The Literary Review, visited the International Exhibition of Modern Decorative and Industrial Arts in spring 1925. She gave an account of it in which she expressed her excitement and admiration about the artist and new ideas that she saw there. She mentions in her letters that she walked through the pavilions with friends and new acquaintances. One of them was an Austrian designer in which you can recognize Friedrich Kiesler. The new and extraordinary nature and reform tendencies of designs, plans, maquettes, costumes, and photos fascinated Miss Heap that much that she invited Friedrich Kiesler to organize a theater exposition in New York, in which he included all the theater works of the Paris Expo and other modernist tendencies that was raised in that time in Europe and the United States, and also the Soviet Union. Kiesler, in complying this request, brought not only those artworks which was exhibited in Paris, but he completed them with those that he installed in the theater exhibition in Vienna in 1924, which was curated also by him. Next to these pieces, he asked his friends and colleagues around the European scene to send artworks to this great exposition. The International Theater Exposition in New York opened on the 27th of February on the second floor of the Steinway building, and it could have been visited until the 15th of March. It was the greatest in size amongst Kiesler's curating works, showcasing around 1,500 theatrical artworks, almost 5 times more than in Vienna. He invited artists from England, France, Germany, Italy, the Soviet Union, and Sweden, amongst others. Also, many avant-garde stage designers from Central Eastern Europe presented their experimental theatrical works together for the first time. Because of the modern and overwhelming avant-garde tendencies, the exhibition got the general stamp that it is a feast of constructivism. The Literary Review magazine, as the main organizer of the event, made its winter 1926 issue to be a special theater number, publishing the names of all participants, the list of their artworks, together with ideological and philosophical text about the new theater, completed with illustrations of works, making it as an extended catalogue of the exhibition. All artists turned up in the catalogue sorted by countries, but the Hungarians could not find necessarily in the representation of Hungary. For example, Marcel Breuer appeared as an artist from Germany, and Vilmos Huszár turned up as a participant from Holland. As already mentioned, the Hungarian artists whose works were exhibited in New York were Marcel Breuer, Vilmos Huszár, László Medgyes, László Moholi Nagy, and Farkas Molnár. Their participation is explained by their direct personal relationship with Kiesler. Marcel Breuer, László Moholi Nagy, and Farkas Molnár worked and studied in the Bauhaus at the beginning of the 1920s. Therefore, their exhibited pieces in New York connected to the Bauhaus theories and the work of its theater studio, although we must underline the distinguished role of Moholi Nagy in this context. The theater designs of the Bauhaus school were presented by Kiesler already in the Viennese exhibition in 1924. Kiesler addressed his request to participation in a letter that was written to Walter Gropius, the director of Bauhaus, on the 14th of May 1924. Gropius found this occasion as a great possibility to present their works in the international scene, and their cooperation continued in the following years, since they had similar ideas about new theater and reinterpretation of using of space. László Moholi Nagy wanted to publish a book about Kiesler's new ideology of installation and his plans of Raumstadt in the Bauhaus Bücher series in 1926. Moholi Nagy could read Kiesler's manifest Vitalbau Raumstadt Funktionelle Architektur in the periodical Der Style that published it in 1925, and he could examine the structure in person when he visited the Paris exhibition in the same year as this group photo is witnessing. In the right. If we examine the exhibited works of Breuer, Moholi Nagy, and Molnár, it seems to us that Kiesler selected items which were published 1 year earlier in the book Die Bühne im Bauhaus. Accordingly, Kiesler presented Molnár's works about his theater utopia, the plans for the youth theater. He selected a photo collage titled Variety and the drawing of a partitive sketch from László Moholi Nagy. We do not know precisely which was exhibited by Marcel Breuer, since the title Variety is not telling too much about it. However, following the scheme relating to Bauhaus artists, it could be the plan of APC Hippodrome, which was also published in the mentioned book. Speaking about Vilmos Huszár, we must detail Kiesler's relation to Thea von Duisburg and the Style movement. Von Duisburg, the founder of the Style group, met Kiesler in 1923 when the Austrian designer worked in Berlin on the staging of Karel Čapek's drama Áruer. Duisburg saw this performance, met Kiesler, and praised Kiesler's electromechanic stage building. Through Duisburg, who was a constant networker, Kiesler could make a relationship with members of the Destei group, amongst them Vilmos Huszár, and got acquainted with their artistic thinking. Nevertheless, his relationship with Duisburg, Huszár, and their colleagues could get him closer to the members of the international constructivism in person, as well as the Bauhaus ideas in theory, regarding, for example, that Huszár and the Bauhaus artists both experimented with geometric abstract performances and the possibility of mechanizing the stage, making a purely technically built device. Huszár presented his marionettes and dancing figures at the exhibition in New York. Finally, we have to speak about László Medgyes. Medgyes arrived in the French capital around 1920-21. Next to his works as a painter, he became a well-accomplished stage designer who worked mainly in small performance spaces and making his place on his own right on the avant-garde scene. Kiesler met the artist in Paris through Georges Antel, who was a good friend of Kiesler. Medgyes planned to put one of Antel's opera dramas on stage in that time. Kiesler saw Medjes's works in Paris, and since he represented similar constructivist ideas like Kiesler himself, unfortunately I can't visualize it with pictures because I don't have these pictures, but still. He selected them in the New York Exposition too. That is also interesting in the meaning of the structure of the New York exhibition and Medjes's self-definition, that although he was seemingly well impregnated in the French theatrical scene, it was important to him to present his works under the title of Hungary, similarly to Moholy-Nagy. In the time of the New York exhibition, Medjes worked for Théâtre Bérizat, the theater company founded by the French opera singer Marguerite Bérizat in 1924. The theater was an opera and ballet company with a troupe of actors participating in a variety of performing arts productions, often with an avant-garde aesthetic. We do not have exact information about the working of this company, but it looks quite well that Medjes had important role, in working of this company, but it looks, important role in it. He referred about himself as he was the main director and manager. He sent 11 artworks to New York, in which numerous pieces connected to his works for Company Bérizat, a model for the performance of Rebemont Design's Arc-en-Ciel, a drawing of a curtain for Aucassin and Nicolette by Paul Flamme, costumes for La Farce du Cuvier, and the model stage for Faust. Next to these, there were 2 stage models and a photograph which generally demonstrated the artist's basic ideas about architectural structures used on stage. He exhibited these works in the previous year in Paris. The Hungarian journal Pesti Napló, or Journal of Pest, published a report about this exhibition where they underlined the significance of Medjes's participation. They write here that the painter and set designer living in Paris and Budapest occasionally applied partly painted, partly plastic sets to realize the new architectural modern concept of theater emerging from Greek and Renaissance traditions. I found it interesting that there is a plan and a cross-section of Theater Knoll here amongst Medjes's works that is signed as Ernő Goldfinger's piece. It can be surprising to see this under the name of Medjes, but some sources say that the architect worked in Medjes School for Stage Design in these years, so we can think about it as a gesture from the artist to present the art of his young colleague. Finally, as a conclusion, we can state that observing a special exhibition or exhibitions that focusing on theatrical works and theory, we can see a whole new perspective of the place and connections of Hungarian immigrant artists. We can have a new look of their social networks and professional activity, coloring the white spots of their history. Thank you for the attention.